Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor, the first edition of the Postgame podcast of the 2022 season. My name is Brandon Drumm. I'm here with Parker Thune, and so are you all, obviously. But Oklahoma won 45-13 over UTEP yesterday, and I think for the most part, everybody should be happy. But there's a contingent of OU fans that aren't right now. And of course, they're the contingent that's never going to be happy is what it is. But we're going to discuss all that, the good, the bad, the ugly. We're going to talk about some freshmen that stood out. We're going to talk about Dylan Gabriel's first game. Brent Venables, obviously, first game as a head coach, how emotional he got after giving a game ball. We're going to discuss that and why he broke down. I mean, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that we haven't really discussed publicly that I think you guys are going to like this podcast a lot, really a lot. Marcus Major, Reggie Grimes, a few recruits on campus. The secondary play, there's been some questions about that. We're going to discuss it all on this episode of the Under the Visor Sooners postgame podcast. So, Parker, after you slept on the game, man, 45-13, just quick initial thoughts of everything. I haven't rewatched it just yet. I'm going to have some thoughts on the game after I rewatch it here when we get done with this and after I post the podcast up, obviously. But what are your thoughts?
Man, with the exception of one very, very impressive play, courtesy of Gavin Freeman on the 46-yard reverse, his first and thus far only collegiate touch, and it goes for a touchdown. Tip of the cap to the young walk-on from Oklahoma City. But with the exception of that play, man, this was a remarkably nondescript game. I mean, you look at everything about it, all the way down to the betting lines. This game went almost exactly as everybody expected it to. I think Vegas had this game at something like 44-14, in essence. Your final score, 45-13 in favor of Oklahoma. And there was just nothing that really jumped out at you, for better or worse, but there was nothing that really jumped out at you positively or negatively about the way that the Sooners played. Now, that is to be expected against a team like UTEP. And as I've said for weeks heading into this contest, Brandon, this was not a game that I was going to put a whole lot of stock into anyway, because the Sooners aren't going to face a reliable litmus test at this point until they host Kansas State on September 24th, because the way that Nebraska has looked to start the season, you'd be very surprised if the Sooners roll up to Lincoln on September 17th and don't take care of business convincingly. So Kent State on tap at home next weekend. That's followed by the road trip to Nebraska. And then you come home for what should be your first real test of the season against the Wildcats of Kansas State, a team that I think is very, very talented and has an understated level of talent on both the offensive and the defensive side of the football. So it won't be until September 24th that I'm really putting a ton of stock into the way that Oklahoma looks. People had their critiques. People had things that they singled out and praised. Obviously, it was a phenomenal day for Braden Willis in particular. The pass game. Yeah. Dylan Gabriel didn't have to throw the ball a whole lot, which we expected. But for the most part, he did what he had to do. The Sooners ran the ball effectively, won the battle in the trenches. It was everything this game needed to be. And that about sums it up from my perspective, Brandon. There wasn't anything about it that needed to get hot taked in the aftermath of this contest. It was simply a resounding, convincing, business-like victory to open a 2022 campaign that itself opens the Brent Venables era. If there's one thing that really stood out to me, it was the energy in that building yesterday. And you knew that's what, regardless of who was standing on the opposite sideline from the Sooners yesterday for game one of the Brent Venables era, you knew that Sooner fans were going to bring the energy. They sold it out, packed over 83,000 people in the Palace on the Prairie. And I tell you what, in all my years of covering Oklahoma football, I think the loudest I had ever heard that stadium was when Caleb Williams was introduced as the starting quarterback for the first time last season. But in their new pre-roll video that ran yesterday for the first time, when Brent Venables' face flashed on the screen, referred to the previous clips of Sooner legends and historic plays in the history of Oklahoma football. And he said, they set the standard. We will defend it. I've never heard the stadium get half that loud. So that was a fun moment. It was just a fun day, all things considered, to be a part of the dawn of the Venables era at Oklahoma. But as far as the game itself, very nondescript. And I think that's how you would have preferred it if you're an Oklahoma fan. You didn't want any significant storylines coming out of this game. You just wanted to win a game in convincing fashion, the way that you should, against an opponent that was clearly inferior. And that's what Oklahoma did.
Yeah, obviously I didn't get to see that part. For those that don't know, I got stuck in traffic trying to get to the game from San Antonio because I went down and watched Anthony Evans and Colton Vasek play the night before. Stopped in Temple, Texas, stayed the night, woke up, left my hotel at like 9 a.m. and somehow didn't make it until 2:30. A 4-hour drive took me almost 6 hours because thanks to the man that decided to jackknife his travel trailer with a brown Winnebago on the back of it. I want to thank him. He shut down all of I-35.
To be fair, I don't think he decided to do that.
I know. I know. I'm just bitter because of that. I'm glad he was okay. You could tell he was okay. He was standing outside his truck, just looking at it, just befuddled. like what just happened? So I mean, it stinks that happened. I saw another wreck that obviously this one was not good later on. So, but anyways, I got up there, missed that part, unfortunately. But what I did, my wife did send it because she videoed it from the stands where she was sitting with the kids. And the first thing that came to mind was they showed like, Bud, Barry, Bob, they got Chuck Fairbanks, like all these people throughout the years inside, and they're going to defend that standard that all those coaches set, right? Well, Muleshoe won 5 Big 12 titles, took him to 4 playoff games, or 3 playoff games in his. Bob took him to 1. At what point do they put him in the intro promo? It's got to be down the line because time heals all wounds.
Does it?
He's got to be in there at some point. I know
Does
fans
time
are gonna
heal
disagree
this
with me.
wound?
I don't know. But everything, he was 55-10 as a head coach. At some point, he set a standard. Good or bad, there was a standard set at some point. Offense, he had 2 Heisman winners, 2 number 1 draft picks. I know people are going to disagree with that a lot because of everything. But that was my first thought is, at what point do they decide to put Lincoln Riley in that intro video? I wouldn't do that for the next decade if I'm them. But
I would never
do it.
I would never do it.
Never. That's fair.
Maybe
that's
literally
fair.
100 years from now, when everybody that was alive to watch Lincoln Riley coach Oklahoma football has passed. At that point, that might be the only time at which it becomes acceptable.
That's fair. I probably agree with you, actually. It just came to mind. I know it was like just a random thought, but it came to mind. I was like, dude, when are they going to put him on there? Because of his win percentage was stupid good. So, and he won a lot of games. He just couldn't close it out in the playoffs. So, and I think that's something that, Fairbanks didn't win a title either, but he's part of the Defend the Standard legacy because of how good he made the program before Barry Switzer.
And Brandon, I can hear the YouTube commenters furiously pounding out on their keyboards.
Shut up, Brandon!
Their critiques of your pro Muleshoe sentiment.
I'm not pro. Whoa. I am anti Muleshoe. If anybody's heard me speak for a long time, you know that. This was just a thought in my head that because of the Defend the Standard, obviously, when you've won that many straight Big 12 titles, and you've been to the playoffs that many times, that's part of the standard one way or the other, good or bad, ugly or pretty. It's part of the standard and the fabric of Oklahoma history, is it not?
It is. That is fair.
Okay. Okay. That's all I'm saying. So before you all rip me, that is the only question I'm asking, because it is part of the history. It's part of what we saw for the majority of the last half decade. For 7 years, Lincoln Riley was a part of that program. So, I mean, and he was a mainstay in that program. Do I agree that he needs to not be a part of it? Yes, he doesn't need to be a part of it right now. But at some point, when you throw in Lincoln Riley, when you throw in Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, he's linked to them no matter what. He is 100% linked to them. You can turn your cheek to that part of that link and just say Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, and just leave it alone. And I think that's probably, you and I both probably think that's what they're going to do for the rest of time, right? They're going to acknowledge one portion of that connection and not the other, right?
That'll inevitably be what ends up happening, yes.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I digress. That was just when you brought that up. That was like the first thing that came to mind. I thought about it when I watched it. I was like, oh God, can you imagine if they put him on there? And I think the boos would just resonate for thousands of miles at that point.
Oh, people would throw things. There would be objects thrown.
By the way, just so y'all know, I brought this up just totally as a troll. Just so y'all know, just totally trolling on the podcast.
So you're
just
not
relax, folks.
You're not actively PMSing. That's what we're going to call pro Muleshoe sentiment from now on.
No,
pro Muleshoe sentiment, PMS.
More than anybody. I totally disagree with how he handled things, and I can't stand the way of thinking and the things that he said since he's been at USC. You and I both know this. We've done podcasts over this. All we do is rip him. So, no, it was just an interesting thought when I saw the defend the standard, because at some point he is part of the standard one way or the other, good or bad, unfortunately for OU fans. And that was just a thought. So do not rip me. I was just making a thought, folks. That's all I'm asking. Don't kill me for a thought. I dislike how he handled it just as much as every other Oklahoma fan. And I've hated on him just as much. We call him Muleshoe for a reason. So, I mean, anyways. But that was cool, though. I did see that. It was really cool. It sounded super loud on the phone when I watched the video. I did think, though, and we got to talk about this. This is part of the bad part of yesterday. As cool as the atmosphere was, and as hot as it was.
Here we go.
As hot as it was. Oh my gosh. Like, I get the older people that fell out and, all that type of stuff. God, I hope they're okay. It was super hot. But when you're 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 years old, and you're griping about the heat, and you show up to a game and you just walk out before halftime, and it's an 11-point game at that point, literally was a 2-possession game when everybody started to leave. Not everybody. I'm talking about the student section. I'm talking about the student section. Has nothing to do with the heat, because it's the same thing when it's 72 room temperature outside. They leave. Gotta go get ready for that frat party. Gotta go get dressed up. Gotta get ready to go for my night out. Am I wrong, Parker? You were a student there just recently. I can tell you during my time in the student section back in the early 2000s, people didn't leave. You just didn't leave.
I think it.
Go ahead. Defend the student section. Defend them.
I'm not going to take a side here because.
Oh, you freaking fence rider.
I have no interest in perpetuating the discourse here, because I think it's rather counterproductive and
It's super
ultimately pointless.
counterproductive, but
Like, here's the thing. If it becomes an issue, if student attendance and student engagement, i.e., the willingness to sit through 4 quarters of football, becomes an issue for some of the more important conference games down the line.
It has.
I
2019
understand that.
Iowa State.
Now I understand that. But again, we're talking about we're turning over a page. As of yesterday, the page has turned. This is the Brent Venables era. So I expect that for games that carry some weight, games that have significance and have meaning, the student section is going to represent well. Now, if that does not prove to be the case come October or November, I'm perfectly willing to loop back around and dive back into this conversation. Right now, look, I will say this. It was 93 degrees down there at field level. There was no shade. Oklahoma was obviously going to win that football game.
Yes.
Am I saying I agree with the decision to leave? Not necessarily, but I will at least acknowledge that I understand the rationale. Right?
No,
So
I
again,
get it. But if they hadn't left before halftime, I wouldn't have said anything.
Yeah. Again, it's UTEP. It's game one. If it's an issue against Baylor, against Oklahoma State, heck, even against Kansas State later this month, then I feel as though some chastisement would be in order. But as for right now, I'm not really worried about it because I think as the season gets rolling for Oklahoma, as they presumably kick off the campaign with a few wins here and start to look like the Big 12 championship contender and potential college football playoff contender that we expect them to be, people are going to engage even more so than they already had. And there were 83,000 people in attendance for that game yesterday. The Sooners sold that place out, as they have for every home game since 1999. That's as long as I've been alive, by the way. So
God,
I am not worried about the fan engagement and specifically the student section. It is not a lingering concern of mine. Let's revisit this if we're still having these same concerns and we're still broaching this topic come mid-October, early November.
Here's what I think is going to be the key, and I'm going to give them next week, because next week with the new LED lights and all the flashing and everything, I think the crowd is going to be ruckus, and it's stripe the stadium. It's going to be important that they stay at least through the third quarter. Nobody cares if they leave in the fourth quarter. No, if you left in the fourth quarter, nobody would say a word to you if Oklahoma's up. I promise you. But it's just the history of it all. I think that upsets everybody. And I'm not the only one that noticed it. It was a strong topic of conversation in the press box. And mind you, everybody wants to sit there and say, oh, well, the press box, you're in the press box. Parker can vouch for this. We sit on the front row, and that freaking glass, that sun is brutal. It is just as hot or hotter than you all have a lot of places have in the stadium. Like, we have to move our electronics away from it because of the overheating. There's because everybody freaking puts the dang windows up and they just let the heat just resonate in, and then you magnify the sun through it. Like, I sat next to 3 people that lifted their window up and just let the air conditioning just go right out, and then the heat from the sun, the rays is magnified on that glass. Like, I had to pull my computer away from the glass about 5 times yesterday because it was giving me the overheat signal. So, I mean, I get it. It was hot. I was sweating in the press box. It was brutal. Now, if they didn't have the windows up, I wouldn't say anything because I wouldn't know how hot it was down there, and I wouldn't have anything to say. But my back was just soaking wet. Like, I get it. I totally understand the fans that were like, dude, it's a blowout, I'm leaving. But a lot of them, like, if you looked from the student section to all the way to the south end zone, they all stayed. It was just the student sections. So that was just my little, and I probably wouldn't say anything, but it was just such a strong topic of conversation. with everybody and a lot of fans as well that were at the game. They didn't like that they left. I will say this about the student section, and I will say this positively. When they are there and they are engaged, Owen Field is a whole nother ball game. And you've seen it in the Cotton Bowl. No matter how hot it is, no matter what the heat is, it's been 95 degrees in the Cotton Bowl. Last year was brutal, dude. Do you remember that? I know you do because you were on the field.
Oh yeah, I remember it, and I got good and sunburned.
Yeah. Oh, I
was
remember that. Looked like a strawberry. That's right. That's
it
right.
was awesome though, because
it was awesome.
That game was electric, so it was worth sitting. And that's it. And that's the other thing too. Like if you're witnessing a game, if you're witnessing a game that is riveting, right, you're not going to move. You're not going to budge from your seat. And so if you're watching a game that's worth sitting through, you're going to sit through it and you're not going to think twice about it. Last year, when I think back to the Cotton Bowl, even though I got so sunburned, I don't think about how hot it was that day. I think about how loud it was. I think about the ebb and flow of momentum. I think about the climactic end to that game when Kennedy Brooks sauntered into the end zone with a single second left, and the sheer revelry that was occurring on the field in the aftermath as Oklahoma celebrated that victory. Those are the things that come to mind for me when I remember that game last year, not how sunburned I got or how hot it was on that particular afternoon in Dallas. So if you're watching a game that is legitimately engaging and that the average fan is going to, somebody who's actually there to watch football as opposed to just get drunk, is actually going to enjoy.
Socialize.
Yeah.
Instagram. We were there.
Exactly. If you're there to watch football and you're treated to a football game that is a phenomenal competition between two excellent teams, i.e. the matchups that we're expecting to see between Oklahoma and Kansas State, Oklahoma and Baylor, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, etc., then you are not going to move for the entirety of that football game. You're not.
No, I agree. I think my deal, I'm a big, I don't care about like the wins, the losses. I'm a big atmosphere guy. Like I like the atmosphere because I think college football is a unique atmosphere compared to any other sporting event. It just is. And the students make that atmosphere. They do. They do. And that's where I'm coming from on this. Like, and I don't think the students realize just how much of a difference they make in an atmosphere. And those atmospheres, if you're an Oklahoma fan, you don't think that doesn't equate to better recruits? You're wrong. Atmosphere sells. It's a big selling point to not just recruits, but just your university. And when you're on national television at 2:30 in the afternoon, I know it's hot. And I'm so glad that, and I hope everybody's okay that fell out yesterday, honestly, because I know it was hot. There was a lot of people that tried to stay and it ended up costing them. And that's an unfortunate thing. But that atmosphere for the student section, they sell it because the TV is looking right at them all the time. That's where because it comes straight from the press box side, right down onto the student section. And when they do close-ups, they don't ever go a lot to just random other. They always stick to the student section because the student section is where the action is a lot of the time. So I don't know. I think for me, that's what it is. I'm a big atmosphere guy. I love atmosphere, and I really wanted it to stay the way it was in the first quarter when it was just ruckus, at least for the majority of the first half. And I guess it did, but like halfway with I think it was like 9 minutes left to go in the third quarter, that student section just started just leaving in droves. And I remember making a note of it on my pad, and I was just like, dude, this is just nuts to me. And I tried to see if they were going to come back, and it just got more thin and more thin and more thin. And I get it, UTEP. But after everything Oklahoma's been through after the last 9 months, that's where, and Venables came out and said it in the presser in the spring, remember? We're going to give 100% of our time. We expect the fans to do the same. And I thought that was lacking at that point yesterday. Now, the fans that stayed, they were loud. They were ruckus, they were loud, and they were awesome. So I hope this week against Kent State, and that's the only reason why I'm saying all this, folks, don't kill me. I'm just saying it because I hope you guys stay, because it makes a difference for your university. And it makes a difference for all of us that love college. We have a passion for college football, Parker included. Parker will tell you the atmosphere is what makes it distinguishedly different, right? And when it spreads out like that and gets sparse, it kind of ruins the atmosphere a little bit, doesn't it?
It does. It
Okay,
does.
that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
By the way,
did
you see the crowd that UCLA drew yesterday?
Oh my gosh. I saw Eddie's tweet.
It's like you can't pay people to watch football out in LA.
And they're a good team. That's the weird part about it. Like, they're a good team. Like, how do you not show up and support a good team? I saw USC was struggling too, as far as attendance, I guess. And I read some of the comments, and it was like, I actually made a comment on one of them because somebody said, well, because there's nothing to do in Oklahoma. That is why. And of course, here I go defending my state. Like, that's the one thing I'll do is I'll defend the state of Oklahoma. Whether it's Oklahoma State, Tulsa, OU, I will defend. And when they said, well, this one guy goes, well, nobody from a major city goes to attend, sells out 80,000 seats for a college football game weekend, whether it's NFL or anything, week in and week out. I was like, yes, they do. Austin, Oklahoma City, and Norman. I forgot who else I named. I think I named, oh my gosh. I named several big city universities. Oh, Columbus, Ohio, Ohio State. Like, these are all big cities with lots of things to do. And yet they sell out their games each and every week. Dallas sells out the Cowboys each and every week. Like, you can't do that. Like, that's just stupid. That's a stupid comment to make. So, no, I saw it. I thought that was just sad. And, hey, Big Ten, you're getting them.
Well, and the counterpoint to that,
plenty of seats to go to for away teams coming in from Ohio State. Plenty of seats for you to have at UCLA and USC.
Yeah, well, I mean, the counterpoint to that too is, heck, if you can sell out an 85,000 seat stadium somewhere like Norman, Oklahoma, or Lincoln, Nebraska, or Iowa City, Iowa, why can't you do the same in a place like Los Angeles, where the population density blows all of those more rural locales away?
Would you call Norman rural though?
No. I wouldn't call Norman rural, but I would say it is more so than LA, obviously.
Oh yeah. But I think Norman has the distinct perfect location that a lot of teams don't have, with Dallas, Houston within a 5-6 hour drive, Dallas 2.5 hours, Wichita, Kansas City 4 hours. You know what I mean? Like, they're within a stone's throw away from 30 million people, like within like the I-35 corridor, probably. So, I mean, they're lucky in that aspect. Whereas Nebraska, I think your point on Nebraska is 100% valid. They're not a stone's throw away from as many people as Oklahoma. Oklahoma City and Norman is centrally located between some of the biggest cities in the United States, and in one of the biggest cities in the United States as far as the metro area goes. Nebraska, give them props. Iowa, give them props for that. I mean, that's amazing what they do week in and week out. But yeah. Anyways, let's talk about the game now that we digressed for the first 10 minutes of the then that's my fault.
It's been a bit longer than 10 minutes, but yes.
Yeah.
On the game.
Yes, yeah. Anyway, so hey, look, I want to say this about the game. We're going to talk about the good and the bad here. The good, in my opinion, was the intensity, the tackling. I thought the execution on the run game, because I think More so than what has been the biggest struggle for Oklahoma offensively over the last 3 years? Biggest struggle.
I think it kind of depends on perspective. Some
What
would
has
say
been
the
the biggest?
offensive line.
Okay, well you're getting to my point there with that phrase right there. Short yardage situations is my what I think has been the biggest issue. They've struggled on fourth and short, third and short, second and short. I think they just have. They've struggled. They've struggled to get that 2 yards, that 1 yard that they needed to get. That was not a problem yesterday. If they needed 1 yard, they're getting 4. And I know it was UTEP, but even against programs like UTEP, Oklahoma struggled over the last few years, right? Like that's just been it. And it's not a Bill Beatonbow situation. It's not his coaching. His coaching never changed. He's been doing the same thing, strength and conditioning. That's a Jerry Smith deal, in my opinion. I think we saw that yesterday. We saw the new strength that the offensive line had. We saw the new toughness they had. And I thought that was one of the biggest things that just stuck in my mind. I was like, you knew they were going to get it. I think the deal on the end, they ran Eric Gray one time. He got like 6 inches, right? They pull him out. They put Marcus Major in. He just blows right into the end zone. I thought that was just a stark difference. And even on the third and I think it was a fourth and short with Eric Gray, they put him in and they needed 1 yard early. And it was like midway through the second quarter or whatever on the plus side of the 50 for Oklahoma. And he got like 4 yards. And the hole was huge. That to me was the biggest difference. There was an attitude to that offensive line. And I think you're going to see it more and more as they open up the offense because they were so bland yesterday. They ran very generic routes. They only tried to go over top twice. Like they didn't do a lot of things that they're going to show. They probably won't show it a lot during Kent State either, folks. So you might as well get used to it. And on the same flip side, defensively, and we're going to talk about the secondary too. Parker and I will discuss this in just a minute. But I thought, even as bland as they were, Parker, they were still efficient. They were still doing what they had to do in the run game, and it paid off. And it showed. They established the run, and they were dominant because of that. And even with them establishing the run, they didn't have a long time of possession. UTEP was trying to get the game over with. They were holding the ball. They were waiting to snap the ball for down to 5 seconds left on the play clock each and every time. And everybody wants to talk about the defensive line. They were max protecting every play. And they still had 6 sacks yesterday. That to me is impressive. I thought that was very impressive.
No, it was. And I think when you look at the offensive side of the ball for Oklahoma, what was undeniably impressive and one thing that you can isolate regardless of who the opponent is the Sooners were moving with tempo. And that same pace that we saw in the spring game was manifested yesterday on the turf at Owen Field once again. The Sooners moved very quickly on offense. And as quickly as they move, it's going to present problems to even the best defenses in the Big 12 if they can move at that pace consistently and establish that rhythm and continue to push the ball down the field. So if there was one thing that impressed me, it was the tempo and the way that the Sooners were able to maintain that whenever they wanted to. Obviously, things slowed down in the second half. The Sooners really didn't have a reason to push as much as they did in the first half because the game was well in hand and everybody kind of wanted to get it over at that point just because of how hot it was and the margin. Mm-hmm. But the tempo impressed me. The way that the Sooners controlled the game and controlled the line of scrimmage impressed me. Everybody ran the ball well, from Eric Gray to Marcus Major to Javonte Barnes and Tawi Walker. Gavin Freeman had the longest run of the day. There you go again. Another shout out to him on that one. But between the way that the Sooners controlled the line of scrimmage and the pace at which they were able to effectively move, particularly in the first quarter, I think you saw all that you needed to see from Oklahoma offensively. And defensively, yeah, they didn't show much because they didn't need to. And They played pretty soft in coverage. They got after the passer. Reggie Grimes had 2.5 sacks. Probably should have been more like 4 or 5 if a couple things bounce his way there, especially in the second half. But R. Mason Thomas got on the field. He impressed. Only had half a sack in the scorebook, but was continually applying pressure. Isaiah Coe got one. Marcus Stripling had good reps. So again, much like I mentioned on the offensive side, defensively, the Sooners controlled the line of scrimmage. And yeah, it was vanilla. It was a very vanilla day. And that word has been thrown around a lot on the OU Insider VIP board over the last 24 hours or so. But that's what it needed to be for Oklahoma. You don't want to tip your hand too much against a team like UTEP. You just want to make sure that you stay comfortably out in front and you don't surrender any big plays. And the Sooners accomplished that. To my recollection, I think UTEP's longest play of the day was 24 yards on a busted coverage by Kendall Dennis. So the Sooners did not surrender any big plays, and they remained in control on both sides of the ball, which is exactly what they needed to do, really all they needed to do yesterday.
Yeah, so I must have been walking down to the field at that point when Tawee Walker made the run. I'm trying to find it here. How long was it? I missed that.
Say what now? Which run?
You said Tawee Walker had the longest run of the day?
No, Gavin Freeman did.
Gavin Freeman. Oh, okay. I thought you said Tawee Walker. Okay. I got you. I'm over here looking for Tawee Walker. I was like, wait, what just happened here? No, I was walking down and I know I saw a hold by, I guess it was Savion Byrd that I heard over the PA. The game likely should have been 52-13 and not obviously 45-13. But it is what it is. That's how it rolled out. But I thought, something you said there about the 24-yard play. I'm trying to remember how many plays were over 15 yards. I want to say it was like 2, right?
Not very many.
Yeah.
And you
2,
look
3,
at Gavin,
4, maybe.
You look at Gavin Hardison's final line. He averaged, I want to say, 5.8 yards per attempt.
Yeah, we talked about that.
If that's what you're doing to an opposing quarterback, like, you're going to win football games. Doesn't matter who it is. And the fact that the Sooners really weren't playing defensively with a whole lot of urgency because they didn't need to, that leaves you a lot of confidence that when they do go up against a quarterback who can, and not only a quarterback, but skill position players who can make them pay through the air if they slip up, if they make mistakes, gives you a lot of confidence that they're going to be able to contain somebody like an Adrian Martinez or a Spencer Sanders the way they contained Gavin Hardison yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I thought that you brought up the secondary. And let's talk about that because there's a contingent of the fan base that thought Oklahoma gave up far too much in the pass game. I want to say grand total of 280 yards passing, correct? 88 yards, something. I think it's 288, right? 288 yards passing. You want to know how many attempts that took to get there? You said it earlier, 5.8 yards a pass attempt. 50 attempts. 51 attempts. Nope. Yeah, 51 attempts. 51. They were 31-51 for 288 yards. The longest pass yard was 24. They were sacked 6 times. 6 times in 51 attempts. That's pretty freaking good, especially when you're only playing zone defense. You were literally, and Ted Roof came out. You heard him. He came out and said that. So they asked him, so what was your game plan? And he said, look, UTEP likes to go over the top. They had big plays the previous week. I thought the best way, and he said, Brenton, I thought the best way to cover that was just play soft zone coverage and let our front 7 go do work. And that's what they did. And even with the front 7 doing the work, they didn't do a lot of stunts. And that's something Brent Venables is known for. Ton of stunts. They stunted some, but it wasn't notoriously like they normally do in Brent Venables' defense. They also didn't have those eccentric and wild, elaborate blitzes that Brent notoriously is known for. They were so vanilla, it wasn't even funny. Like you could tell they were just straight rushing the passer, 1-on-1, trying to get to Hardison, and they did quite a bit. There were so many quarterback hurries. There were 6 sacks. There was probably 5 other plays that Oklahoma could have intercepted the ball, went straight through their hands. And then Gentry Williams finally made the pick that helped those that have the betting line. And those were betting at the end of the game. They were like, thank you, Lord, Oklahoma covered. So, so I mean, yeah, to me, it was a great performance by the, I'm not great, I would say good performance by the defense. It was what we thought a Brent Venables defense would do. I mean, they had
I thought you were about to launch into we are who we thought they were.
Oh,
Dennis Green.
Dennis Green. Yeah. Yeah. No, they
are who we thought they were, I guess.
There we go. And we let them off the hook. Yeah. No, they had 28 total rushing yards yesterday. 28.
By the way, negative 35 rushing yards in the first half. So a lot of that production came in garbage time.
Exactly. I mean, that tells you, I had people tweeting me going, the defensive line is not very good. They're too little. And I was like, what?
Too little? This is the biggest defensive line Oklahoma's had in a minute.
Yes.
I mean, there's some big bodies up front there.
Yeah. Isaiah Coe, pretty big. Jalen Redmond's put on a ton of weight. He's almost 200. He's almost 300 pounds now. Like, he came in, he was like 225, 230. So, I mean, he's put on a ton of weight since he's been at Oklahoma. And I thought Reggie Grimes, I thought Ethan Downs, I thought Kelvin Gilliam was pretty good yesterday, actually. I thought he was rushing the passer really well. Man, he caused a lot of problems when he was in there. Trying to think who else. I thought Jordan Kelly was pretty good, consistent. Just like every coach calls him, Mr. Consistent. He was consistent yesterday. I thought Danny Stutzman was phenomenal, by the way, yesterday. I thought he was phenomenal. I thought he was really, really good. I thought David Ugwebu was really good. And the secondary, Billy Bowman, was exactly what everybody said he was going to be. Everywhere. He was second in tackling on the team?
No, he tied for the team high in tackles with Danny Stutzman. Tied for the team high,
that's right. Yeah, with Danny Stutzman. Both those guys did a great job yesterday. I thought Jaden Davis, I think that's something we need to talk about. There's a lot of questions about Jaden Davis and what he was going to be. Is he going to be physical enough? Was he physical enough yesterday, Sooners fans? Because I thought he was very efficient tackling. He made one play yesterday where he missed a tackle trying to shoulder the guy out of bounds, and he ended up getting the first down. Outside of that, when he was one-on-one, there was a play I remember he held on for dear life, waiting for everybody to pursue over and help him on a screen pass. Because if he hadn't done that, the guy's charging down the field about 30 yards. I mean, he was holding on for dear life to get that. And that's something you didn't see out of Jaden last year. I thought that those are the things Oklahoma fans need to put in their mind and be like, hey, this team is better defensively. They're more efficient tackling. They're more physical. Far more physical. I thought also people are asking questions about Justin Harrington because Deshaun White was out there so much. Again, base defense. They're not going to show everything against UTEP. As the season rolls on, and remember, they were playing Justin Harrington everywhere, right? So he's still trying to pick up things, whereas Deshaun was just strictly, he was your cheetah from the start. So he's going to know more, right? That's just part of it. Harrington is going to be a guy that is going to be hard to keep off the field as he gets more comfortable, because for a long time they were playing him at corner, they were playing him at cheetah, they played him at free safety because Keith Lawrence was nicked up. I mean, there's a lot of things that they were doing with Key Lawrence, or with Justin Harrington during the fall camp, actually was a detriment to him, I thought. And I've been told it was by numerous sources. Now he's going to be focused solely on Cheetah, and that is going to help him out substantially. But when he was in there, Parker, I thought he was really good. Even in mop-up duty, he almost had an interception.
Yeah, I mean, he was, and we've heard so many good things about Harrington dating all the way back to spring ball when he rejoined the team at the beginning of April. But again, I'm going to reserve judgment one way or another until we see Oklahoma play a football team that's close to on their level. But you are no doubt encouraged more so than anything else yesterday. I think much like we were talking about, the one thing you can be encouraged about is the tempo that they played with. Another thing that you can be encouraged about on the defensive side of the football, if you want to look at the other side of the coin, is something you already mentioned, that is tackling. The Sooners tackled well. Mm-hmm. And if they continue to tackle well, they're going to be a formidable defensive unit, because that's half the battle right there, is simply tackling.
Yeah, no. So if you had players of the game right now, if you had to name offensive player of the game, defensive player of the game, defense is easy, but offensive player of the game, who would you pick?
Offensively, I feel it's hard not to say Braden Willis. As much as I want to give Gavin Freeman his flowers, I do think we've given Gavin Freeman his flowers, but Braden Willis had a huge day, played a lot. Daniel Parker did not see the field at all yesterday.
He was in Helms. Wasn't he in street clothes? When he was in street clothes, right?
Yes. Yeah, Daniel Parker did not participate. Caden Helms didn't get in the game. Jason Llewellyn had a few snaps towards the very end, but Braden Willis played basically the whole game at the tight end position for Oklahoma, and he was phenomenal. He had 2 touchdowns. So I give him the nod on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, how do you say anybody other than Reggie Grimes with how dominant he was, man?
I know.
And I know Billy Bowman and Danny Stutzman had great performances as well, but Reggie Grimes was a freaking force, man. In the backfield, seemingly every single play.
I think that's the easy pick, is Reggie Grimes is the defensive player of the game. I'm going to go. You took Braden Willis, so that was probably going to be my pick. I guess I'll go Eric Gray. I mean, Dylan Gabriel was good. He was good. He was efficient. 15 to 23, 233 yards, 2 touchdowns, was only sacked twice. He had a long pass play of 42 yards. He also ran 6 times for 30 yards. So, I mean, he had a good game. He had a really good game. But I thought Eric Gray averaging 6.4 yards a carry, 16 attempts, 102 yards, a long of 35. He didn't have a touchdown. Marcus Major had the 2 touchdowns on the ground, along with Gavin Freeman. So I guess I'll go Eric Gray. The other, you can't really say. I mean, you want to say just because of the cool story that Gavin Freeman was the player of the game, but he didn't. He got 1 touch the whole game, so can't really do that. But it was an awesome play, probably the best play. I think that's the story we need to talk about. Gavin chose to walk on at Oklahoma. Chose to walk on. He had P5 offers, folks. Much like Drake Stoops, chose to bet on himself as a walk-on. And the very first time he touches the ball, he scampers 46 yards for a spinning, tackle-breaking, pylon diving touchdown that everybody's going to remember because of who his dad was and the fact that the very first time he touched the ball, he scored. And he's an OK Preps guy. So it means something to him. I asked him that yesterday. I said, can you put it into words? What everything means to you right now? He goes, man, as far as I can remember, I knew my dad played at Oklahoma, and I thought that's what I wanted to do. And when given the opportunity by Coach Venables to come be a preferred walk-on and earn my spot and try to earn that scholarship, he said, I jumped at it. He goes, things weren't going the way I wanted it to go at Texas Tech. There were some changes there. He goes, I decided to bet on myself, and it's the best decision I've ever made. He said the coolest part as well was that Matt Wells, who recruited him at Texas Tech, is now at Oklahoma as an analyst. helping out with wide receivers on the offensive side of the ball. So I thought that was a very, very cool story. Thought you would
Sorry.
have something to say.
Sorry, I didn't realize you left the end of that sentence hanging as if you had
No, it was a very cool story.
one final punch.
It was a very cool
But
story.
yes,
Period. Very cool
yes,
story.
yes, it was a very, very cool story. And to see it happen for him in any capacity his freshman year would have been awesome. But for his first collegiate touch to go for a touchdown, and a touchdown that was that awe-inspiring. It was truly a fantastic football play by Gavin Freeman. He couldn't write it any better than that for the kid. And so, yes, he had the play of the day yesterday. It's the story of the day easily. The one time he touched the ball all game, goes 46 yards to the house, spinning, breaking a couple tackles, throwing a couple stiff arms along the way. I think with Gavin Freeman, as you look towards the future and where he might fit into this receiver room for Oklahoma, the question becomes, can he build on this? Can he take what he just did with that one touch, and can he turn it into another productive touch and another? Maybe it's 4 or 5 touches next week. Maybe it's 7 or 8 the week after that. The point where he is a key cog in this offense. I don't think that's out of the question, because I think when you prove, as Gavin Freeman did yesterday, that you can make plays with the football in your hands, they're going to find snaps for you. So the jury's still out, I think, but it was a very, very strong opening act for Freeman yesterday.
No, I agree with you. He just has that it. You watched him in high school, and I challenge everybody to go watch his huddle film. It's fun. It's really fun. The guy has a chance to be that special player for Oklahoma. And he named it off. He said, "Look, I look up to the Drake Stoops of the world. I'm similarly built to Drake. I'm similarly built to Hunter Renfrow." He said, "Those are the guys that are built like me. They play like me, and I've got to try to live up to their standard and maybe better." And he goes, "Marvin Mims is another guy that I'm built similar to, not as tall, but built similar to, have similar game." And he said, between him and Drake, he said, "I have the mentors that I need to be as good as I want to be at Oklahoma." He goes, "If I have questions about the playbook, if I have questions about video or film or anything that's going on in practice," he said, "those two are right there to help me." He goes, "Marvin Mims is right next to me in the locker room." And he goes, "And I ask him questions over and over." And he said, "God bless him." He said, "Marvin sits there and helps me as much as he possibly can so that I can be a better player." And he looks up to those guys. And I thought that was a really cool statement by him, that he named the Renfros of the world, the Stoops of the world, even Marvin Mims. Like, even though Marvin Mims wasn't a walk-on, he was a late take by Oklahoma, similar to obviously Drake and Gavin. So they're all kind of in that same little niche, even though Mims was a 4-star, highly decorated guy. Oklahoma pushed late on him and got him. But I mean, hey, what a cool story. And I don't think this is the last we're going to see of Gavin Freeman. I actually think he's going to be a mainstay. I'm not saying this year, but I think comes 2023 season and on, he has a chance to be a very, very intricate part of the Sooners offense moving forward. He just has that. He's fast, man. That dude can fly. And he's hard to tackle. It's hard to tackle in the phone booth. So that's just exciting to see when you get legacy guys that do those type of things, for sure. What if you had to name some young guys that stood out, whether in big time part of the game, very important parts of the game, or mop up duty, who would those be?
R. Mason Thomas is the first one that comes to mind, obviously, with the exception of Gavin Freeman. We didn't get the chance to see Gavin Sawchuk. We didn't see Caden Helms. We didn't see Jaden Gibson or Nick Anderson. So some of those key or some of those young, exciting freshmen on the offensive side of the ball did not get any run. We didn't see Robert Spears Jennings on defense. We did get to see Jaron Kanek, and he looked good. He looked real good. So I think those are the two that I would probably name right off the top there are Mason Thomas and Jaron Kanek.
Missing one.
Guys that, yeah, well, how could I forget? Gentry Williams cares about your money.
There you go.
But yeah, I
think he does.
Now with Thomas and Kanek particularly, and much like Freeman, if Williams can build off that big play he made, but with Thomas and Kanek, I think you're looking at two guys that have demonstrated throughout camp and demonstrated via their play on the field yesterday that they warrant a second look. They warrant a snap here, a snap there over the next few weeks. Maybe a snap here, a snap there against Kansas State when things really start to get serious and the rubber meets the road on September 24th, because those are two guys that can contribute meaningfully in 2022 for Oklahoma. It just comes down to how they steward their opportunities, as it does for any true freshman. So I'm going to be excited to see how those two can develop specifically over the month of September, because I do think they have a chance to be key pieces in the puzzle for Oklahoma defensively come October, November, and the meat of this conference schedule.
Yeah, look, our Mason Thomas, man, he got after it. He's not your typical edge guy that you would see in Brent Venables' defense. He is more of a stand-up guy, which you thought Clayton Smith would be that guy, right? But he struggled some. Our Mason Thomas has come in and just been that guy. I also think that, you know, there's something to be said about the evaluation that Miguel Chavis and Brent Venables did with our Mason Thomas. As it's kind of funny, you talk to Danny Stutzman and he calls our Mason Thomas Randall, Marshall, can't remember the other part of it.
Montgomery.
Yeah. Randall, Marshall, Montgomery, Mason Thomas. And he just makes up stuff. Our Mason Thomas really middle name is Montgomery. So is Ethan Downs, according to Reggie Grimes. So that's interesting. But the funny part is that, or the best part is that this guy has been a mainstay as far as from the start of fall camp to now, just being able to be that guy that everybody talks about, the guy that has stood out from day one. And everybody talks about our Mason Thomas and what he's, and so we were like, oh, well, we've got to see it. Well, you want to see it? Oh, it was shown on Saturday. I know it was UTEP, and he's going to have harder and better blockers he's going to go up against. So that's going to be something to watch. Is his development continue? Does he continue to grow as he goes up against stiffer competition? But I think he will, because I think when you go up against the Wanyes of the Wanye Morris of the world, the Anton Harrisons, the Tyler Guytons of the world, you're going to be in the Jacob Sextons. You're going to be able to handle the opposing team's offensive tackles as well, because those guys are pretty good at tackle for Oklahoma. And so you're learning how to go up. That's probably why it was so easy for our Mason yesterday to just stand up and rush the passer. He just got after it. And he made some plays on the run game too. So he's got a chance to be really, really special. I thought you were right. He's probably the biggest standout defensively. Jaron Kanak as well. And even that play where he rushed the middle and got his legs pulled out from underneath him, put his hand down on the ground, stayed balanced up, and still got to the quarterback and caused an errant pass was pretty special. And that's the type of thing I think we're going to see out of Kanak moving forward. He has a chance to be one of the best linebackers on that team, I think, as the year moves along. I'm not saying that he's going to be a major player and performer and contributor against Kent State or Nebraska, But I think as the year moves along and they have to start rotating guys because people get dinged up, not so much dinged up that they can't play, but dinged up that they need depth and, to keep people from, injuring themselves more than they already are. I think you're going to start seeing the Knacks of the world in there and making plays. As far as Gentry Williams goes, he was there. He made a couple of plays. He was there on a couple pass plays earlier. He seemed to be in the right place, the right time, and then he was perfectly positioned and where he was supposed to be on the interception and made the play. A play that other OU players didn't make when it went straight through their hands earlier throughout the game. So I think this is a nice contingent of young players that Oklahoma has a chance to build upon, not just in 2022 as far as depth goes, but down the line when they become starters. You're starting to see the potential of some of these guys. And I think that's something Sooner fans can be happy about, especially when you see how Oklahoma's recruiting in 2023 to add on to that 2022 class. So we didn't get to see Javonte Barnes, like you said, very much.
Yeah, 4 carries for 25 yards. He showed some nice burst, but
he
didn't see the field a whole lot.
Yep. So, and then Jaden Gibson was one I was shocked we didn't see. I don't know why. I don't know why. I really thought we would see a lot of him today or yesterday. So that was kind of shocking to me. Very shocking. Finally, let's talk about some recruiting. Oklahoma hosted some recruits yesterday. Wasn't a lot of big names on campus just because of the time of the kickoff. So, and Oklahoma doesn't do a lot of official visits during the season. That's something they're going to, and when they do the official visits, they're going to be on specific weekends. So I think October 15th, is that the Kansas game?
It's October the Kansas 15th? Game.
So you're going to have the Kansas game. You're going to have Kent State game. Next weekend is going to have an official visitor or two on campus. One specific, Jordan Renaud, which I'll be out the night before, seeing him play at Tyler Legacy and covering that and talking with him before he goes on his official visit. October 15th, and then obviously November 19th are going to be the big official visit. Now, the unofficials are going to be every weekend. It's just a matter of who can get where. The timing of the game. I think the OU Texas game is going to be big. I know that Colton Vasek's going to be there for that. And I'm going to have a bunch on Colton Vasek and his recruitment and where things stand with him, because there's a lot of buzz from certain side that Texas has a chance to flip him. I did not get that vibe whenever I was there, and I'll have that on OU Insider VIP.
I don't know that there's a lot of buzz from one particular individual.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's about it. True.
Yeah, he's trying to stir the pot, and it's not working out very well for him right now. But we'll have a lot of recruiting notes coming on OU Insider VIP. We'll have a lot of team stuff coming. I've got my thoughts on the game coming up. Really deep, in-depth breakdown on things coming up over the next 24 hours. Parker has his mailbag. So we're going to have a lot of information from the team side. Video stuff's coming. We've got a lot already up, but we're going to have more video breakdown of the interviews and all kinds of stuff on OU Insider. So it's going to be a if you're not on OU Insider, you should be. Let's just put it like that. But as far as recruits on campus, you have Davian Sims, Jacoby Johnson, Jackson Arnold, Daniel Cruz, 2024 offensive lineman, 4-star offensive lineman was there. 4-star defensive line, Davian Sims was there. 2026 rising star out of Durant, Colton Yarborough was there. He's got several P5 offers already. He's only played a couple of games for Durant, so there's a reason to be excited with him. That was about the list of big names. Parker Andrews was there from Norman North, a defensive end that I think Oklahoma I think he's going to be a preferred walk-on for Oklahoma but I think he's a guy that his ceiling's so high. I think he could be a lot like several other preferred walk-ons over the years that Oklahoma's had that ended up gracing the field, in year 1, year 2. So he's got a lot of upside. Really good player for Norman North. He was there. I think I said Jacoby Johnson, Sooners commit, was there from Mustang, 4-star athlete, defensive back. But there wasn't a lot. I think the next week, Kent State, you're going to see a lot of guys coming in, 5-star defensive back. We're the ones that first reported this on OU Insider. 5-star defensive back Peyton Bowen, 4-star 2024 4-star defensive back Eli Bowen. Jackson Arnold will be there. We were first to report Jordan Renaud was going to be on September 10th for his official visit. And there's going to be a lot more. We're going to have that list coming out throughout the week. So be sure you're on OU Insider VIP to get that list. We're going to have updates on recruiting throughout the week. We're going to have updates on team information throughout the week because we got pressers on Monday and Tuesday. Once again, podcasting, the weekly podcast on Wednesday will release on Thursday. So be prepared. Lots of information coming on OU Insider. As far as recruiting goes, Parker, do you have any? I know you were out and about. Any information you want to vaguely drop on this post-game podcast?
No, I don't think so. I think we'll save, and probably what we can do here on now that we're in season, is save the bulk of the recruiting notes and content that we have for the YouTube live stream, which is going to be every Wednesday night at 8:30.
Right.
So we will answer all of your questions on that. We may hit a few depending on who's going to be in town in the pregame podcasts before each game. But no, for the moment, if you want the scoop on all things Oklahoma football and recruiting and you're not a VIP member, again, now would be a fantastic time to sign up. Yeah. And I don't want to steal your thunder here with the promo, Brandon, so you can go ahead and take the floor here.
No, go for it, man. If you want to do the promo it up, bro. Because I go for it. You do the promo.
Okay. Well, for the price of a cup of coffee every month, $2 and change, you can get a full year of OU Insider VIP right now. Annual subscriptions are 75% off, which how long is that promo running, Brandon?
Tuesday night. It ends Tuesday night.
Okay, so you have 2 more days. You have 48 hours to sign up for OUinsider.com at 75% off. $27 gets you a full year of OU Insider. You will not find more or better OU football and recruiting coverage anywhere across the wide, wide world of the interwebs. So if you are not a VIP, join the thousands and thousands over the course of the past year who have jumped on board with us and become VIPs at OU Insider. There's literally never been a better time with the dawn of the Brent Venables era. So in addition to that, you stay on for a full year at $27. You re-up for an additional year at full price. You're also going to get Paramount Plus for free. So if you're a movie buff or you like binge watching shows, old or current, you got Paramount Plus to look forward to after a full year with OU Insider at no additional cost to you. So that is. Did I leave anything out, or is that is the skinny?
That is the skinny. That's the skinny. $1 for the first month. If you don't want to do it, $9.95
yeah, that's right.
Afterwards.
You can always take it for a test drive. $1 for your first month. That deal is always on the table. So if you don't want to commit to a full year, spend $1, get a month. We've had a couple members on the board in recent weeks say, hey, I signed up for $1 and it didn't take me long to upgrade to the full annual membership. So odds are you're going to like what you see. You're going to like the information you're being fed. And we would hope that you stick around with us on an annual basis.
Yeah, I think it's the community people that you guys don't understand that aren't on it. But what you see on Twitter isn't even remotely close to what you get on OU Insider, because there's a lot of people that are insider and inside the program. They get to be underneath the anonymous names and they post information that you won't find anywhere else. And when you add that to what we provide as far as program and team notes and VIP stuff, you won't find a lot of other places. It adds up. So there's a lot of people connected to the program on OU Insider that start threads. You can comment on any thread. You can start your own thread. You can be a fabric of the community. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of members, seriously, on OU Insider. It's not just a few hundred. It's literally thousands and thousands and thousands of members. So there's a reason why we're one of the largest 24/7 sites. And we take pride in that. We take pride in being accessible to you all. We take pride in being able to be reached. If you DM us, if you PM us, if you're on the Twitter Spaces with us, you know that we're open to talk to all the fan base. And we hope that that means something to you all in the end. And that's kind of our goal, is to be part of the fabric of the fan base with you guys. Even though we're media members, we want you all to feel welcome to be able to ask us questions. And that's where the VIP chat comes in. That's where us answering questions and commenting on almost every thread on the board daily comes in. I mean, we try to do that for you guys on top of providing information every single day, multiple times a day in most days. So you won't find that anywhere else, I don't believe. And if you do, please show us, and we will try to up our game even more for you. I promise. But yeah, 75% off, $26 gets you a full year. You get all of the VIP across 24/7 sports. There's 250 VIP sites on 24/7 sports. And for $26, you get every stinking one of them. Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma State, Texas, USC, Ohio State, Notre Dame. If you want to go check out and see Texas A&M, you want to go see what they're doing, all you have to do is go click on their site, go to the VIP board, read their stuff. You get to be in the know. You're going to be one of the most well-informed college football fans that there is. And we take pride in that. So anyways, again, Oklahoma won 45-13, opening a Brent Venables season. Real quickly, though, we didn't talk about it, and we had it on a list of topics. The emotion that Brent Venables had. Speechless. I think you're silenced, my friend. You're muted.
Dang it! I was on mute. I was just gonna say you can't help but feel great for him. And you all saw the video on social media of him being presented the game ball by Joe Castiglione and getting choked up.
Yep.
And it's abundantly evident that Brent Venables is a guy that wants to be here and is passionate about the University of Oklahoma and this football program. And that was very conspicuous in the locker room after the game yesterday. Meant a lot to him, and you could tell.
Yeah, well, when Braden Willis yelled, "I'd run the wall! I'd run through the wall for you, coach!" So, I mean, I think when you have a captain, a guy that's a leader of the team, speaking up like that, and the rest of the team's going, "Yes, sir," I thought that was really neat. That the whole team backed Braden Willis's statement saying, "We'd run through a wall for you, coach." They love Coach Brent Venables. They love that staff, and it is so evident right now how close knit this team is. But anyways, yeah, that's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners Postgame Podcast. For Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drumm. You guys have a blessed day. We will see you guys on Wednesday for the YouTube Live. Peace out.